Thank you so much. I can start, I think. Thank you so much, everybody. I just want to take 1 nanosecond to thank all of you. You have no idea how happy I am to be here. I mean, this kind of panel, it's absolutely incredible. We don't have a theme, right? So for this panel, this kind of, that I guess, that, yes, wayfinding. So, but I think, anyway. I would just like start by asking each of you what is so far the thing that you learned today, that this, the thing that you actually underlined twice, something like, okay, this I'm gonna put it in my notebook. If there's anything that strikes you among all the things that we've discussing so far. Age before beauty, you said no. Well, I just got. Was the Emirati thing? Is this way from right to left?
Sure. I think for me, it's mainly that Hugo and Richard have done an excellent job in putting us all in one room. Really, because I keep learning new things every time. I keep opening my eyes to new layers in mapping and passenger information, wayfinding, new tools to wayfind and new ways of well, learning new things about what others have done. Really. Art for wayfinding. I think that's the major one that I picked up today, I would say.
Thank you. Andrew?
I think passion and creativity. I mean, one thing is that the amount of passion in this room for what we do is quite remarkable. And the creative solutions that come about, and certainly with my personal experience, and one of the things I've particularly structured my career like I have, is that you get to know the culture of these different cities. And the metros, their public transit services, because as we discussed earlier, it's a lot more than just trains. It's about trams and buses, etc., are such a reflection of the city. And what we're trying to do in the map making is reflect that culture. And I think that's one of the really interesting things when you see designs from different parts of the world, how there's a Russian influence on the Russian designs, and there's a North American influence on the North American metros, and that understand that cultural nuance. It's wonderful being in a room with so much expertise.
Thank you. You?
I was thinking that I'm trying to remember what was said in Paris in 2018 or 18, yeah? And yes, I was 6 years younger, but I remember that I was overwhelmed by some messages which were not, which I was not expecting about, for example, the coming of the digital age with Apple and so on. So until now, we didn't have any presentation about that, and we are only at the middle of the symposium. But I think that we are not anymore in the descriptions of facts which are happening, and we are oriented in a philosophy of project. What to do, how to answer to new expectations. Even my questions about the multimodality, it's about how will we be able to tackle these issues. So, listening carefully to everybody, I was really impressed by it, because I'm 65, so I can think that I know many, but I'm enjoying really the day, because every 10 minutes I note something on something new. So, and what I can say is that art and ethics and cultures are back in our work. Even if you say, Ilya, that Figma works for us, like IA. But I think that we are humans, and we have to convoke to our brain to be really the best for the next years. So yes, we have to be very active and very. It makes me more lively myself.
Thank you. And Andrew, you mentioned art and passion. On the second subject, I just want to offer a formal apologies to Ilya because it's because of passion. And you made me a moderator of a panel. With my temper, you see how I react if I only think for a moment that one single user might be disadvantaged by a map. That's how I react. So a formal apologies for my language. And how can we channel, this passion, do you think we are equipped as a wayfinder or a professional in the field on a discipline that if you type wayfind, it still has the red mark on. And it was 30 years ago then Passini and others kind of presented, and it was what, 50 years ago in Lynch, the first appearance of the term. So it's where are we now? Are we doing something wrong? Because yesterday evening we were all complaining about the client in a sense, the way also graphic designer complain about the client or branding designer complain about the client. So is there something we need to do perhaps in the category to reach the level where, okay, guess what? This time we really are in charge. This time we have the research. Maybe is the research that is not mature enough? Do you have any, from your perspective?
I think, if I understood you correctly, I think the clients have been changing, from my perspective, quite a bit when it comes to the importance of wayfinding, the demand of a wayfinding consultant, the demand of having wayfinding consultants be part of the conversation from early stages of the pre-concept design, not even concept design. Me and Jörg have done many competitions together because they wanted, Bjarke Ingels Group wanted to involve us on a lot of the master plans that they're working on. We've had LWK involve us on a lot of the master plans that they're working on, or a lot of the competitions they're working on. Whenever they see that there's need for wayfinding, when they're also innovating, we're working on something out of Oman, one of our sustainable cities master plans, and the architect wanted to involve us with the client and took us to introduce us to the client and to prove our necessity. Unfortunately, they didn't come out of that very, very happy, but you picked a whole lot of holes in their master plan that basically put the architect 10 steps behind. But still, the usefulness of the wayfinder comes through, especially when you're trying to innovate and from a user's perspective, when you're trying to change the way the users interface with the city, or change the tradition today is vehicular-centric in this region and becomes pedestrian-centric. It actually comes with a lot of issues and problems, and that is where we're, as wayfinders, we bring that to the forefront. We address those issues first and foremost.
I should preface this by saying I've been a professional client all my career. So when it's interesting, the consultant says, yeah, I wish the clients could do better. I sit there and, well, okay, how can I do better? And I go on to say that I got into becoming a client. I am a qualified architect, but not any particular specialist training in transit design. I've just been doing it for 32 plus years. Because I realized, A, I wasn't that good an architect, and B, I loved working in the public realm with people. And you design a hotel, you design a hospital. People are on holiday go to hotels, people are sick go to hospitals. Everybody uses transit. It's the most used buildings ever, and that's kind of why I steered my career in that. But particularly when it comes down to wayfinding, to mapping, I think the most important map of all is the mental map that's in your head. And what we are as professionals are creating as ways of influencing, building that mental map. And whether we do it through art, whether we do it for a formal map, whether it's done through a sign, whether it's done through the design of a building that's very distinctive. And you mentioned Bjarke Ingels and working with some of the big architects. And often the clients, and when we talk about the developers, the guys who are hiring those architects, are hiring them because the name gets them something to sell. They're not interested in particularly in architecture. They're certainly not interested in wayfinding. They're interested in making money. And we often, as wayfinding is coming in, as you were describing earlier, fixing problems, trying to solve some of these things where it should be approached holistically at the start. So I think that's the really interesting part. But the reality of clients, and I say as a professional client, it's not just me. I'm just the architect, typically working in a very engineering-led organization. And when we talk about public transit, it is a multifaceted, usually government and political influence client that is eventually calling the shots. And the frustrating thing always for me is that we're dealing with people who are not trained in the creative professions, architecture, engineering, wayfinding, who are ultimately taking decisions. And so how can you use language? I think that's a good example earlier about the consequences. I think you were saying earlier about the consequences of making the wrong decision, trying to educate and nudge them in the right perspective. Because that's when we finally get legible cities and legible wayfinding comes naturally.
If I try to answer to this question, in fact, I have to use my multicultural nature because wayfinding doesn't exist in French. En français, ça n'existe pas.
Je sais, malheureusement.
But perhaps, fortunately, that it forces us to think in some other ways. And for example, the word design doesn't have the same meaning in English and in French. So English-speaking people and non-French-speaking people can't imagine how it's bothering. Because design is mostly used in French as an adjective. A false sense of, this cup is very design. So all the decision makers, all the politicians, all members of the family will use the word design like that. Do you say about something, this building is very architecture? No. So, and you don't use design as an adjective in English. So it means that if you put that away, the word design is rather precise compared to the design used in English, which embraces all the forms of conception. So perhaps if I replace wayfinding by moving design, I can answer better to your question, because it's always about putting the shoes of the user. For example, I was militating during months recently before my retirement about multimodality and interchanges, to how to create better hubs. You know that in the committee, and so it's very complicated, but because it's first about governance. It's not about the techniques in architecture, in urbanism, in design. It's about how to take the decisions. And my president, who is the former prime minister in France, Jean Castex, said, okay, pôle multimodaux, so multimodal places, it's technical word. I would like to I prefer to say, let's produce a continuous and consistent customer experience. So I was thinking, he didn't go in a design school, but he's saying the good sentence. So if I come back to your question, wayfinding is about creating continuous, consistent, pleasant experiences. And the word experience, thought by all the design since decades, not the word experience which is now used in marketing, you know, we have to create experiences when they go to a shop. No, the experience, the very silent and intimate experience one person has when he does everything. So if we are motivated by that, if wayfinding signifies that, yes, I think we can create progress without always try to innovate. You know, there is also a competition for innovation we receive from some directors. Create something innovant. Yeah, but it works. It doesn't. Well, you have to change. Why? Can you imagine that? Sorry if I come back to the Ile-de-France drama about the signs which have changed. The introduction of the general director of our authority, when he presented to all the companies the strategy of changing the signs, he said, we are not anymore in the era of the typewriter. And we were thinking, it was very good, the typewriter. Yeah. So when some people make a kickoff of some change, because we have to change, you must worry. So the way to cope this type of like an aggression is to convoke how the customer experience is shaped, and so this must be our motto, our obsession, in fact.
Thank you. Just want to double check because I mean the audience is. Is there any question coming from you guys that I don't want to?
Yeah, I actually have a comment.
Go ahead,
if I'm allowed. Going back to the bilingual and there's no wayfinding in French. The closest is signalétique, which is more the science of signs and signage. I feel, and this is more of a comment, but feel free to comment on this. I feel wayfinding is more, the focus is different. The focus is on helping people find their way. You know who this is for. The wayfinding is for people, whereas signalétique feels like could be signs for robots. It doesn't really matter who it's for. We're just working on making signs. So
signalétique designate the machine you will create to solve the problem. Wayfinding designate the result you want to. It's not way searching. It's way finding. So the find is better than way, in fact, because it's a positive conclusion. And with this word, I think it embraces more concepts than signalétique. But about signalétique in French, which is signage in English, it's better than signalisation, which is the word used in rail, which was used when I entered RITP, signalisation voyageur. The word signalétique was not existing in the 80s. Imagine that. It was created in the 70s, 80s.
Anyone else? Yeah.
This is amazing. Everything I think just began yesterday and today it's like a dream. Everything. When you talk about in Spanish also, we don't have wayfinding. The definition it doesn't exist. But I think that here we saw that the relationship between the very difficult relationship between the spatial configuration and the interaction, social interaction. There are three-dimensional things. That is the logical, mental, the aesthetic, like poetical thing, emotional thing that we saw in some presentation, and the ethical things, that is political dimension. When we put together into the project and we saw into the narrative things, well, when we write a novel or a book, when we saw into the book and we read the book, we saw inside everything. And for me, this is the wayfinding thing. This is just the intersection between the difficult experience when we move around the space. No, yesterday, for example, we saw in the magnificent building, the Louvre Museum, we saw the people that are losing, like you said before, Zach, in the main hall, and also in the exit. And what happened during the process? Something happened. We don't know. Maybe sign of things. Maybe the light in some point is more effective. I don't know, because it's very, very, very complex, that. But I just want to share this reflection, because I am very motivated with this panel and this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I take the mic again?
Please.
Because I want to share what we want to do. So, me as advisor now, how I can advise my colleagues of my company to do something. We have written a first text about improving the interchanges, the hubs. Because, you know, in the hubs where several operators operate, passengers can be like parcels which are given from one operator to another. A parcel is more intelligent because they have it as a tag, you know, and you have scanners which knows what to do with the parcel. But a passenger doesn't have that. The tag is his brain, and he has to do the effort to know where will I go. So it's very important to tackle all the issues existing in the hubs. And so I will skip some chapters of this operation, which will last several years or several decades to repair many hubs in the Île-de-France region. But the emergency, the urgency is to make people, the staff, multimodal. So if you go to the Porte d'Italie metro staff, written RATP, you ask a question about the tram or the bus. Je suis du métro, je suis pas du bus. I belong to the metro, I don't. So this is impossible. We have to change that. And the idea we have had is to try to create a process of, it's a new word I've learned one month ago, promenadology. So making
Walkology.
walking logy. So walking as a science. So together between several people on paths which would be decided. So you take a bus guy, a metro guy, a tram guy, and you say, you do this path like a customer, and you speak to another, and you see the signage. So you find your way, and you note everything. And after that, you will gather all the information you have got yourself by conversation, and it will create a brief to repair the place. So I wanted to say that it's not yet decided to do so, but the different directions are very seduced by this very simple and field-oriented way of working, not theoretical. And so it means that wayfinding can be the tactical discipline to tackle all the customer experience problems. After that, you see the lights, the dirtiness, so everything. But first, what does you open your eyes and you discuss with your colleagues. You were saying that some of your students were telling you, "Oh, you have given me eyes to see what is bad." So, but if it's used in a professional way, not to criticize the colleague, but to together discover the brief of what should be done. Yes, it can be very interesting to improve the situation the customers are living. Not it's not theoretical. So signage is really real. Wayfinding is really in the real life.
Thank you. Do we have time for another round? One last question? Okay, because I want to ask forgiveness again to just give the students just the eyes to see what's bad. So maybe just training the eyes to see also what's beautiful. And I'll start with an example. I will ask each of you if you can give one example of one physical thing that we have to see, that you encourage people to go travel and see. Could even be from your own work, okay? For me, I'm from Rome. If you ever go to Rome, go and see the landmark navigation and city planning system set up at the time of Pope Sistus, which uses obelisks, no less, Egyptian obelisks. There actually, I think there are more Egyptian obelisks in Rome because the emperors brought them all in Rome than Cairo, and they use them actually as visible landmarks. So you see one, you know where you have to go, and it's basically it's more or less still in place the way it was half a millennia ago, the center of Rome. This is one of the coolest and more uplifting example of a navigational system I can imagine of.
I'm going to be selfish and say Marmoum, one of the really most explorative examples. It really helps users explore the environment. It's different for as a solution from a wayfinding perspective. It's Al-Qudra Lakes, Al-Marmoum, the reserve, natural reserve in Dubai.
I'm also going to be selfish. 200 odd stations, stadium station stands out as being remarkable. I showed just a few slides, but 2 or 3 pictures doesn't do it justice. Go to Singapore, get on the Circle Line, go to Stadium Station is amazing.
Because I didn't speak about that, I would say Legible London. You know, the Legible London solution, the system, is like the Massivo Vignelli signage system in New York, a mark, a beginning, a kickoff of a world generation of systems for pedestrians. And Paris is completely lacking. The pedestrian life in Paris is not good, you know. In London, Tim Finlay, who invented that, said, you know, the beginning, he made a survey in the Circle Line, and he discovered that 50% of the people who were taking the tube should have gone by foot, because it's so deep and the interchanges are so long that by foot it's perhaps more tiring, but it's better. But at that time, the central London cartography was made of the AZ guide. You remember AZ?
Yep.
It's art. It's not mapping. It's you have to use that. I have that at home. So he created the system. It worked so well that TfL commissioned him and decided to develop that on the whole city for the Olympics in 2012. So London was very late. Now Paris is very late about pedestrians. So Legible London.
Okay, thank you very much. I would say that I'm happy that this panel is over, but there's an entire day tomorrow, so I'm super, super excited. See you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.